is some of the most healing food right in our pantry.
You know what? It is. And I discovered that through the work that I do and the research that I do. And I really found that people are often looking, Dr. G, for the superfood, the next best thing, the next best supplement, not all of which are great. But, it's right there in your pantry. It's the spices. It's the spices in your cabinet that can help you every single day. In addition to making your food delicious, you can actually get a lot of brain benefits from them by eating them consistently.
I remember it was a few years ago in neurology class in medical school, I was learning about the brain and the different centers of the brain. And I remember there was one part of one class where we talked a little bit about ancestry, social rejection, social isolation. I find it really interesting. At the time, I put it in my filing cabinet of my brain and then just went on with neurology. But then recently, somebody asked me about it on Instagram, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. And then I had a friend copy and paste a part of an article and send me something about how our brain perceives social rejection. And then it piqued my interest. And then I said, okay, the signs are all there. We got to do a show on this. It really got me thinking. Now, I talk about love and I talk about fear as polar energies that we live with. And we hear so much about living in love, right? A lot of us are living in fear, and it's part of the structure of the society we're in. You turn on the news, you're going to see fear-based stuff. You open a magazine, you're going to see fear-based stuff. You look at how people around you are acting, and it's fear-based. But it goes maybe a little bit deeper. And I think it has a lot to do with our interactions with each other. So I want to go into exactly how important is social acceptance for social rejection, and how deeply ingrained it is into our biology. Did you know that social rejection has a felt experience similar to physical pain? The need to belong or be part of something is evolutionary. In fact, it's weaved into our very biology. Our survival, as we were evolving, depended on it. When we are as a group, our chances for survival increase. But when we're alone, they go down. There was an article called Social Acceptance, the Sweet and the Bitter, published in Psychology Science Journal. And it starts off with this beautiful quote by Lily Fairchild. And the quote goes like this: "Deep down, even the most hardened criminal is starving for the same thing that motivates the innocent baby, and that's love and acceptance." We need social acceptance. We need to feel that we are needed or desired to be in a group. Social rejection is the opposite, when we're pushed away from that group. You remember in high school, you were sort of like looking where to weave into and what group you'd be accepted in. Everything was really cliquey, but you didn't feel necessarily part of one group or maybe part of another. This was a real experience of social rejection and social acceptance. How many of you felt that? How many of you remember actually what it feels like to not be accepted into a group, or even worse, excommunicated or isolated from the group? Now, I mentioned earlier about being accepted into a group or community increases our chance for survival, but it also satisfies another fundamental biological initiative, and that's passing on your genes. By being in a group and being a continuous member of a group or community, you increase your chances of finding a mate. These are all biological programs in our body where we feel better because we're in alignment of what our body wants to do. Remember, we live in a different world now. We, by all intents and purposes, could be hermits living in a mountain, only relying on technology and kind of doing our own thing, right? A little lone wolf. But our ancestors, they survived and passed on their lineage on this very concept of social acceptance, right? Being part of something. And social rejection likely meant that long ago our ancestors were meant to die. It was a death sentence. All right, we got a new sponsor alert. And remember, I only partner with companies that I believe in, that are doing good for the world and doing good by us. Calm. You heard of the Calm app. I know you have. It's one of the highest grade, top rated meditation and overall just health and wellness mind body apps. In today's super fast paced world, which you're living in and I'm living in, taking care of your mental health is more important than ever. I talk about this all the time. Really, I just drop it in there every show. If you're looking to reduce stress, increase mindfulness, improve your overall well-being, you need the Calm app. Calm helps you stress less, sleep more, and live a happier and healthy life. Calm recognizes that everyone faces unique challenges in their daily lives, and the mental health needs need to differ from people to people. And also, our time for meditation can vary. Not everyone could do it at the same time, and not everyone can dedicate all the same times that other people can. And since self-practices are so deeply personal, right? It's your ritual. Calm strives to provide content that caters to everyone's preferences and needs. Their meditations range from focusing on anxiety to just stress when you can't take it anymore, self-care, and inner peace. They have sleep stories, relaxing music tracks, daily movement sessions, all designed to give you tools to improve the way that you feel. And we need this. We need it bad. They even have expert-led talks on topics like overcoming stress and anxiety, handling grief, improving self-esteem, caring for relationships, and more. Everything you need to prioritize your mental health and wellness is on Calm. If you go to calm.com/DRG, you'll get a special offer for 40% off the Calm Premium subscription. That's 40%. New content is added there every single week, so relax. Just relax. Calm's got everything you need to be a happier, healthier you. I love using Calm because it's a resource for me, for my sleep, overall anxiety, and stress. When I'm going on gear number 5, I need to stop, especially in the middle of the day. Calm is an amazing resource. Go check it out. For listeners of the show, Calm is offering exclusive 40% off of the Calm Premium subscription at calm.com/DRG. Go to calm.com/DRG to get 40% off unlimited access to Calm's entire library, all for you. That's calm.com/DRG. Up until now, there hasn't been very many supplements on the market that support this phenomenon called mitophagy, the most important phenomenon when it comes to your long-term health. This is the flushing out of your old damaged mitochondria. Now, back in school, I was reading about a compound called urolithin A, and I was super intrigued. I was looking for the supplement, and there was no isolated supplement. I learned that they were in pomegranates. I also learned it's really hard to extract that much urolithin A from pomegranates to get a scientifically proven dose with the therapeutic effect. So here comes this company, Timeline Nutrition, that recently made a product called Mitopure. And what they did was isolated urolithin A, and it's coming in 3 different forms. So it comes as a capsule, a powder, and a protein. With the protein, you get a combination of the muscle building, all that good stuff, and the cellular energy from Mitopure. But the berry powder, you can put into smoothies. I like the soft gels. They're convenient. I take 2 every single morning on an empty stomach, but you can also take it on a full stomach. Personally, what I find with Mitopure is that my energy is up, but not skyrocketing up or valleying all the way down like a cup of coffee would. What it gives me is long, sustained energy. I use it before my exercises. I notice that my muscle strength is better, my endurance is better overall. And it's really important because over the age of 30, your mitochondrial function starts going down. It's not as efficient. So if you're over the age of 30, and this is an investment for long term, this is one of the best products out there. Really one of the best. I would say top 1 or 2. Timeline is offering 10% off of your first order of Mitopure. Go to timelinenutrition.com/DRG and use the code DRG to get 10% off of your order. That's timelinenutrition.com/DRG. I recommend trying the starter pack and see which one is your favorite. Now, according to this aforementioned article, social rejection brings up feelings of anxiety, anger, sadness, depression, and jealousy. Diminished self-esteem and self-worth are all part of it too. And yeah, we know this may be right. We may have gone through these emotions and feelings when we were rejected. But did you know that with social rejection also comes cognitive impairments as well? Here's a fantastic excerpt from this article. Social rejection influences cognitive process in 2 main ways. First, it reduces performance on challenging intellectual tasks, resulting in subpar performance. Second, social rejection causes people to become cognitively attuned to potential sources of social acceptance and potential threats, presumably as a means of gaining acceptance from others. Rejected people can also be hypersensitive to signs of threats. For example, rejected people perceive hostility when confronted with ambiguously aggressive actions of a stranger who do not represent a source of affiliation. So essentially what this is saying is when we are rejected from groups and community, not only is it going to affect the way we do our work and the way we perform, right, which can totally affect just our livelihood, but really what happens is when we're socially rejected, we become hypersensitive to the world. We are hypersensitive to potential threats, but we're also hypersensitive to where we can gain acceptance. So how many of you live in this state of, okay, I'm really inherently, not even consciously, but maybe subconsciously needing connection, needing community, needing acceptance to be seen and heard. And now when we interact with the outside world, any way we can gain that acceptance, we become hypersensitive and always presumably going towards that as a potential source of acceptance, continuously putting our energy into that, or any potential threat to that acceptance, we become hostile and ambiguously aggressive towards that. It's a question to think about. It's a question to think about. Are you operating from really looking inherently, whether consciously or unconsciously, looking for a community and becoming so sensitive to where you can find that and pushing away any threats from it? Something I never even thought of, but something that may actually resonate with a lot of you. And the more we experience social rejection, the more aggressive we get overall as well. And we see this in multiple lab studies. And because social rejection can make us even outwardly aggressive, right? Or even hostile, especially to threats. When we are socially rejected, the moment we have some small taste of acceptance, even from a stranger, it's enough to even reduce that aggression markedly, right? So that's very interesting that our anger can go down just by a stranger accepting us. So how many of us are living in a constant state of anger because we're not feeling socially accepted? Social rejection also increases the lack of impulse control, even around food, which is wild to me. How many of us are living with that constant whisper of, you need to be part of a community, you need to be accepted into a bigger tribe. And when we're not, with that rejection, we can compensate with an increase in impulsive behaviors. And for me, my theory is around safety. I actually believe that social rejection triggers deep emotions that lead to the compensation of addiction or anxiety or compulsive behaviors. So biologically, what happens when we are socially rejected and do not have a community? Well, not only do we see the aforementioned mental, emotional changes, right? The anxieties, the depression, the mood changes, but downstream, we start to see physical disruptions from not being accepted into a community. Cortisol goes up, as you'd imagine. So your blood pressure goes up, your blood sugar goes up, your sleep is disrupted, anxiety goes up, your libido changes, you see weight gain changes, and you have an increase in inflammatory proteins in the body. You're in a higher state of inflammation just by virtue of being socially rejected. Progesterone actually goes up too. And with this, you might see weight gain, bloating, water retention, fatigue, and mood swings as well. It can also cause anxiety, an increase in anxiety, which interestingly enough, may actually drive some people to go out of their way to make good impressions on potential affiliates where they can get accepted into a community. Interesting biological driving force. It seems to me that so many of our physical changes in our body, mentally and physical, are centered around seeking community to be accepted by. Here's one of the most interesting parts. With social rejection, the parts of our brain, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex and anterior insula, light up. And this is correlated with pain. Literally, the I am not accepted into this tribe, I am rejected from this tribe, causes the brain to perceive physical pain. So much so that they've done studies showing that Tylenol actually was shown to reduce the neural activation from social rejection versus placebo. Tylenol actually helped people with their hurt feelings. That's incredible. So naturally, then we come back around this conversation that I've had on the show many times, and I've asked many guests. How do we create more community? Now, I'm of the belief that you're never too old to create a community, but first you have to be in touch with yourself. Really, it's important to understand who you are first. Because to be part of a community, you have to show up as yourself. Because if you show up in a community as not yourself, that is never sustainable. So the acceptance into the community as the version of you that sort of is not you or unstable will only be fleeting. So most important before even putting yourself out to be part of any community, whether it's your local church group, your local basket weaving group, your local sewing group, your local marathon or triathlete group, you got to show up as yourself first. This comes back to the authenticity. Who are you? What is the integrity of you as a human being? What parts of you have you accepted? Have you accepted that you are a loving, joyous, grateful person, but also an angry, sad, fearful person? The more that you accept all the parts of you, the more that you hold the capacity of who you are. The more that you hold the capacity of who you are, the more you give people the opportunity to see the real you. And of course, wouldn't you only want to be on a community that accepts you for you? That should be your number one parameter. I will only be around people. I will only give my time to people who see and accept me for me. But first, it's up to you. Another way to foster better community or better social acceptance, aside from you holding the integrity of yourself, is look for a hub. How many of you know that one person who knows everyone? There's always somebody who knows that everyone, especially if you move into a new town, right? I was just in Austin a few weeks ago, and I did a quick theoretical exercise. If I was to ever move here, like, would I have a community? Well, I know two dudes. And these dudes, of those two, one is a major hub. He sort of knows everyone everywhere. He knows the fitness community. He knows the yoga community. He knows the conscious community. He knows the rock climbing community. So I know him as my connection, him knowing me, being able to vouch for me as a upstanding human, as a human in integrity, will be able to seamlessly weave me into other communities where I could find more friends. So really, when people vouch for you, that is the quickest way into getting into a community. But again, you have to find out and hold yourself in who you are and what you truly love. Are you a person who loves painting on the weekends? Then find a community that is actively holding and influencing and inspiring your gifts, because that's going to give you the most nourishment. To be with people that are allowing you to fill up your cup of gifts and artistry or whatever it is on the daily. That's the most beautiful community in my eyes. So look, I know how hard it can be. I know a lot of us are alone. I know a lot of us may have moved to a new town. I know it's hard at the age of, I was just at a party and this guy he just moved to LA and he's 38 years old. And he's like, I don't know anyone. And I was like, I'll be your friend. But it's interesting because I put myself in his shoes and I was like, wow, 38-year-old man, it's really hard to just come to a new town and make guy friends. Like, let's go on a man date and hang out, right? If you've ever seen the show, the movie I Love You, Man. So again, you have to be clear on who you are, show up as yourself, and let people come to you. I really hope that helped. I hope that was informative, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let's get to this amazing, amazing special guest interview with Dr. Naidoo, nutritional psychiatrist. All right, everyone, check this out. I got a rarity on my show today. I got a special guest who doesn't do many in-person interviews, and I got Dr. Uma here. And if you don't know her work, she is going deep into the foods. What is the important nutritional interventions to help our brain reduce that inflammation, put us in the best mental, cognitive state, not only now, but for the long term. And I'm super excited to talk about some of the best interventions we can make with the doc. She is here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Dr. G. I'm really excited to meet you and to see you today.
This is like a unicorn in here. You're here and you don't do many in person and we got you.
I'm excited that we can make this work.
Very cool. Your work is compiled in making sure that people are in the best mental health. And that is some of the most beautiful work you can do, because I've seen so many people suffer with mental health issues, and that can degrade someone's health faster than a skin condition.
It is so true.
Right? Faster than so many physical disease. So I love that you're doing this work, but I'm going to ask you a question right off the get-go. Is some of the most healing food right in our pantry?
You know what? It is. And I discovered that through the work that I do and the research that I do. And I really found that people are often looking, Dr. G, for the superfood, the next best thing, the next best supplement, not all of which are great, but it's right there in your pantry. It's the spices. It's the spices in your cabinet that can help you every single day. In addition to making your food delicious, you can actually get a lot of brain benefits from them by eating them consistently.
I love that because, one, affordable.
Yes.
Two, they last pretty long. I got to check mine. Mine might be a little expired after a while, but they last long, and there's research actually behind some of these spices. Yeah. What are some of the best ones that we need to be filling our pantry with?
So, let's start with something that many people are suffering with these days. I keep hearing in my practice, and even just questions that we get on social media, people have a lot of fatigue, and they're having a lot of brain fog. Some of it may be side effects of long COVID, but other just, what's been going on for the last several years. So I like to talk about an antioxidant called luteolin because it's in certain herbs and spices like Mexican oregano, some red and hot sweet peppers, mint. So a nice pick-me-up if you're feeling a little bit kind of tired in the afternoon. It's a fresh mint tea. It really kind of perks you up a little bit. And so adding those in could be super helpful. But one that I talk about, maybe a little too much, is something I grew up with, which is turmeric and a pinch of black pepper. Now, as a child, my grandmother would make a golden chai for me, and I learned the recipe from her, and she'd add other spices in. But more recent research showed that adding a pinch of black pepper, so the piperine from black pepper, activates the curcumin and makes it like 2,000% more bioavailable to our body and brain. So that's a little trick I learned through my research. And it's something that, if you don't cook, you can add it to a tea, a soup, a smoothie, but very powerful antioxidant, very powerful anti-inflammatory, something simple that you can do. And so I like to add that in. Now, I'm a fan of spices, but also spicy food. So I like capsaicin from chili peppers. And you can actually modulate how spicy you eat a food, but it's extremely valuable. In fact, in other medical work, it's used for pain and things like that. So it's just another spice to add. And now that's just a few of the many that I love.
I love that because we have in a glass bottle or a plastic one, but mostly glass ones they come with, and we have therapeutic benefit, evidence behind this stuff.
Yes.
I mean, turmeric that's like one on the top, king or queen up there. That one's amazing
stuff. It really
stuff.
is good. Yeah.
But you mentioned cayenne, capsaicin, and this is one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
Because when I found out that it's used in medicine for pain, they have it on the rubs.
Yes.
I was like, okay, I wonder if I can use it on a wound, because I have it actually in the kitchen. That and cinnamon, anytime that there's a cut, I'll put it on there, and it'll clot everything, clean it up, and it's like, and it's beautiful just to see how it works, even topically.
This is true. Ancient cultures have done this for so long, and it's almost like we are catching up. So I agree with kind of the experimentation around it. And as a chef, I care that food, we spoke about this a little bit, people feel if food needs to be healthy, it can't be delicious. And spices just bridge that gap for you because you add the flavor in, even if it's a little bit of dehydrated garlic, say you can't get fresh garlic or you're traveling. But something that adds that flavor and gives you, the herbs that you need. And another tip I have about this is, because there are the fresh herbs, like we mentioned, mint. But if you ever used, say, dried mint, just use like half the quantity, because the fresh is abundant, but the dried is very concentrated. So you just want to use about half the amount, and you still get a great effect.
And you can use these, like you said, some for teas even. You can put as teas, you can put some for food.
You can put some as tea. You can add them to top a dish and include it, roasted veggies, your kind of grain bowl, whatever it is that you enjoy. I, make a lot of what other, almost my own, my different types of salsas with different herbs and spices, but I also will chop up certain herbs in my roasted dishes, and that way they incorporate the flavor, and then I eat it, and I'm consuming that when the food is ready. So it's kind of an easy way. You just learn these little tricks and tips when you're cooking, and part of it is you want to include those benefits.
I'm inspired to get in the kitchen already. Just talking about all like the simplicity of utilizing spices. So everyone viewing and listening, take a little inventory of your spice cabinet, see if it's expired, get some new ones, make sure turmeric, cayenne, some mint, maybe some basil. We got
parsley,
some herbs and
thyme,
spicy,
all
parsley,
of these.
thyme.
Yeah.
Make sure you
Oregano,
fill it up there and put it on there. Now, one I've always been in awe of, and I haven't seen much research, but some on saffron.
Yes.
Now, is it true that saffron can be an antidepressant?
Yes, it can. So saffron is very, very powerful as an antidepressant, and it has a good body of research behind it. The only difference, Dr. G, is with saffron, if you're making a risotto or, in, say, a biryani, and you use those spices, or it could be a fisherman's stew, they don't take much saffron. So saffron is highly expensive. It's also, you only use a few threads for your dish. The research, though, used supplements, and because they needed much higher doses. So in the case of saffron, I think it's fantastic to cook with. But if you're using it for that antidepressant effect, you probably need to speak to your doctor about a clean supplement because you're going to need those higher doses. But very good evidence behind it.
I love that. Because still, in that, it's showing you the power of food, the power of spice,
Right.
the constituents in it, how it can help something like depression. And talk about expensive. Not only is it expensive, they give you a little glass jar. So you have, if you grab more than a few threads, you're half gone already.
Exactly, you're done with it and you spend a ton of money.
You spend a ton of money. I know,
Yeah.
saffron really gets you. So I know you work so much with mental health, mental healing, the anxiety, the OCDs, the ADHDs, the depressions. In your research, in your time you've been doing this, what are some of the biggest pillars that are leading to so many people suffering so much?
You know, I think that one of the things that's happening is we find that when we go to see a doctor, I think the expectation from both sides of that relationship are that a medication will be exchanged. And Dr. G, you and I know there's nothing wrong with that. Medications have saved the lives of many of my patients, but it's not the only thing. And I think the big thing that we're missing is that there are these other tools. The model of care that I've practiced in my clinic is really holistic and integrated with a functional approach, looking for a cause, but putting it together for people. So I ask about nutrition, I ask about lifestyle, I ask about exercise, spending time outdoors, forest bathing, I ask about whatever I can. Also simple things, hydration, right? All of which impact your mental health. So I feel like when we see a doctor and the expectation is we need to take a pill, we need to unthink that a little bit. When it's necessary, absolutely. Medications, in serious mental health conditions are life-saving. But at the same time, why not also ask, what is someone eating? So if you're prescribing something that is going to cause metabolic side effects and cause the person to gain weight, you really should be asking them, what do you eat? Are you exercising? What else is going on? So I feel that that's one pillar that we need to broaden, and perhaps consumers need to understand that they need to ask about the questions that could also help them. And then we need to maybe advocate a little bit more.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, mental health is not practicing this way. We are not asking about food. We're not asking about nutrition. And for that reason, I'm working to expand the education around this, both through programming at the hospital and CME-based programming for clinicians so that they can actually learn these tools. But another thing that we're not paying attention to is body intelligence. And this is a pillar I talk about in nutritional psychiatry because I hear all the time, I'm fatigued in the afternoon, I need another coffee, I need a nap if I'm working from home, I'm too exhausted to take care of the kids, I'm just, things are not working well for me in the afternoon. But people seldom consider what they've eaten. It's usually I didn't work out, or I did work out and I'm tired, or the traffic was really horrible, or I had a stressful meeting. But we're not looking at what I've actually been eating these last several days. Have I done some meal prep, which is hard to fit in, but if we make the time, it does help us. So because I didn't do that, I stopped and got, a fast food, or I stopped and ate something at the office that was fast. It wasn't a nourishing meal. And when you start to put that together, you realize that you can actually feel lighter, feel better, and make a healthier choice for yourself.
Yeah, and it's incredible to put that education now out because the incoming health professionals need to know this stuff.
And the funny thing is, Dr. G, what inspired me to step back a little bit from the direct clinical work in the last year and lean more into education and development was that my book came out during the pandemic, and students, medical students, fellows, residents, people from all over the world, even high school students. Like, I will always pay attention and try to get back to the high school students because the younger folks coming up, if they care about this, we can actually change things.
Yeah.
And so during the pandemic, I did a lot of lectures online for groups like that. But putting it together, even in the first level of a course, so people get introduced to it, and I want to build it from there. And that way they have some knowledge that they can start to change things. Because I really feel like mainstream psychiatry, even though I commend the American Psychiatric Association because they've asked me to write a textbook on nutritional psychiatry. It's taking me time because I'm busy, but they've acknowledged it, which I think is a big thing. I think it's going to take much longer for us to create a subspecialty.
Yeah.
So in that time, I want people to suffer less and to have more tools, and for clinicians to be able to offer them more solutions. And the only way to do that is education.
Yeah, and especially, like you said, the younger generations coming up. And I'm so happy to hear that high school students are even interested in this. But you know what?
Their projects.
They're talking about more about mental health.
They are.
This is actually something.
They are, and they're seeing food as one of the solutions. Not the only solution,
Right.
but why can't we also do this if we want to feel better? And I love that they are paying attention, and they have all these cool projects and stuff that are going on.
How do you feel then about cell phones? The connection to cell phones, the unhealthy balance that a lot of people find.
Yeah.
What do you think about cell phones and mental health?
I feel a little bit mixed because let me start with the positives, and I'll work from there. Some of my patients with anxiety, and it's interesting because many people don't realize that anxiety is still probably by 3x the most common condition in the United States. Mood disorders often cause disability, and that's how the two sometimes get a little confused. But that being said, sometimes, and a lot of the time, mood and anxiety run together. But many of my patients actually will use an app, even a meditation app, a breathing app, which I teach them to practice when they're not feeling anxious, so that when that panic comes on or that anxiety wave is something they're feeling, they can turn to that. And if a smartphone is an easy way to access that, if they on a train, if they in an airport or driving, anything like that. So on the one hand, it does provide some solutions, even meditational music or just calming sounds of nature, whatever it might be. So I think there is a place, but I think we've grown really too dependent on and I openly admit I spend way too much time on my phone because it's my way to communicate with my team. It's a way that I get my work done sometimes, but it's not good, and I know that. And I'm trying to be better about putting my phone away before bed, hours before bed. Really putting it away when we go out for dinner. My husband and I talking or enjoying conversation with friends. I really want my phone to be away. And so I think the way we need to think about it is in moderation. Being, parents, I think, need to be careful about social media and their children, because some of the stuff that goes on in terms of information that's being shared, hacks that people want to try, can actually be physically dangerous and medically dangerous. And also, people can get very wrapped up in a drama that can be very painful for them and have negative effects. And given that right now, our most critical suicide rate is in young folks, I think social media can be very dangerous in that way. Yeah. So I just want there to be some moderation of it and maybe some guidance from parents over how and what social media their children consume.
And this is a great point because it's such a new frontier for current parents and future parents.
Yeah.
I'm not a parent yet, but I'm like, okay, how am I going to handle this social media thing?
It's very hard.
And you talk about young suicides. I wonder how much of a role has to do with the social media, the identity of social media, the chastising of social media, right? And
the bullying that goes on.
The bullying, it's incredible.
The isolation that kids feel. And sometimes this is popularized or it's kind of shown in a movie, right? There's a depiction of it, but it happens in real life. And when you realize that could even be a component, it's very scary because, there's now a couple of generations who have missed out certain huge kind of milestones in their young lives, right? And so isolation is a very big part of it. There's a very fascinating study to make this point that was done neuroimaging at Mass General. And the research has found that individuals who had not had a COVID infection, so they've not been exposed at all, on their brain scans had neuroinflammation. So whether it was the isolation of how things went down during the pandemic, whether it was the worry, the stress, they actually develop neuroinflammation. So think about it, even the kids who may or may not have gotten an infection, or adults, all of us, there's still impacts on our brain. And so when you add to that the stress of the social interactions, which can be difficult, it's just something for us to be careful about.
100%. And so many of us trying to find community.
Yes.
And finding it through social interactions, but it's not real community.
That's it.
It's not how we evolved.
It's not sort of a human connection. It's the social media connection, and people can rely very heavily on that. And I have to tell you that my own experience of social media really evolved, and my entrance into social media happened because it was the only way to share my work. Because my book was launched right in the middle of the pandemic, and it was so early that events hadn't become virtual. There were book signings couldn't be virtual. Everything, literally, the world fell away beneath. So besides the horribleness of everything that was happening, I had this other life in writing my book. And what it taught me is I really had to grapple with how do I make this useful to people. And so I use social media as an educational platform. And I've continued to do that and found a way that I'm at peace with it, but it's not perfect. It's not a perfect world. And so I try to balance that out with how do we offer guidance and advice to people? How do we do it in moderation?
Yeah, 100%.
It's
very important. Same. Like people, when we're putting out information, we got to be on our phones, but
yes.
It's just a matter of just boundaries,
That's right. Healthy boundaries.
Healthy boundaries, right. And there's nothing that's going to have me turn it on again. For me, I need to put it in another room.
Yes,
Once it's right. Like a few hours before bed, off in another room.
And it has to be, you almost have to have that physical boundary in that instance, because it's buzzing, something's happening, someone's calling, because they're in a different time zone these days and whatever it is.
So I mentioned about community. How important is having human connection on our mental health?
It's one of the most critical things. It's one of the most, and this is why, as we went through the last several years, I would say to my patients who are single or who couldn't be with their parents because their parents were older, even if you have a Zoom dinner, even if you connect with someone on your FaceTime over lunch, I think this is important. It's just important to bring in that sense of community. A lot of the research done in the blue zones is fascinating because they talk about the power of 9. And some of the factors weren't related to food. They were actually related to that sense of community. Now, the interesting thing, people will talk about blue zones diet and blue zones foods, and they'll mention the wine.
Yeah.
I personally think, and looking at the research, that that's related to the sense of community. It's not the actual, yes, there's some positive benefits of it, but it's also the community. It's bringing the family together. It's eating that meal together. It's conversation. It's, giving someone a hug. It's that warmth of the human connection, because I think we as humans we're meant to be with others. It's part of our nature. And so I think that as best we can, maybe for younger folk, and for everyone though, to create a healthier sense of community is important. So social media, I don't think, is the best way to do that, but other ways are important.
Other ways, yeah. So that's a big pillar. Now let's get to your bread and butter, right? Or your healthy gluten-free bread and your healthy butter, organic. We have the nutrition, right?
Yeah.
And there are so many great evidence-based foods that are simple. Like you said, we're going crazy over the next superfood. What is this exotic berry from Peru?
Right.
What do we have right now at our fingertips that can make a big difference for the viewers and listeners if they just intervene it right now?
So you remember when I walked in, I said, please finish your lunch, because that's really important.
Yeah.
And what I noticed was that you had a lot of delicious leafy greens. And I cannot tell you the number of times that I get the eye roll when I talk about leafy greens, because we've heard this before, but leafy greens are related to mental health, because decades of research has shown that low folate is associated with the low mood. So having those several cups, whether it's a side dish, whether it's in your part of your breakfast dish, or wherever it is in your day, becomes hugely important just by eating it consistently, because that's vitamin B9. We know that B vitamins are really important for our brain. So adding and including those foods becomes key. Another thing that people often think they need a supplement for is a prebiotic or a probiotic or a fermented food. All of these things we actually can easily have in our kitchens. We can either make, we can purchase, so you can buy fermented foods like kimchi or certain pickles. Just watch for the sugar content and buy them refrigerated. Miso paste, all of these are delicious things that we can add to our food. Prebiotic foods are actually garlic, leeks, and onions, which are the allium family, some things that many people cook with a lot. Bananas and oats. So these are foods you can bring into your diet every single day. So even though it may seem like, oh, well, I've heard this before, understand that the connection with these foods in your brain have really been overlooked.
Yeah.
People think about, well, I'm going to eat healthy because I need to lose weight, or I'm going to a wedding and I need to fit into that dress, or whatever. That's culturally how we tend to be, unfortunately. Yeah. But here's the thing, a lot of these foods are good for your brain. So we talked about the spices. Fiber is sadly lacking in our diet.
Yeah.
And we tend to count protein grams, also important, but most Americans lack the fiber in their diet. And you can get fiber from vegetables, fruit, beans, nuts, seeds, legumes, the healthy whole grains. Try to add those in. So there's all of these sort of groups. People know and have heard about the omegas, and these are important. They're healthy fats for our brain and body. Good amount of research for anxiety with omega-3s, and a huge amount of research for cognitive health and for depression. So these are powerful foods. And, I think that not everyone consumes seafood. So there are non-seafood sources like hemp seeds, chia seeds, sea algae, and you can always supplement with a plant-based supplement, because the short-chain omegas, ALA, don't convert as well for your brain health, but they're still worth it for the other benefits. So take a supplement if you need to in that instance, and add in those nuts and seeds. So, I'm touching on a few things, and, I'm sort of almost not leaning into the whole rainbow of vegetables, because I feel like that's, like with your leafy greens, it's the basis of how we should be doing things.
Right. It should already be there.
It should be. We shouldn't be telling people this, because people are tired of hearing it.
Yeah.
And so I just say, look, challenge yourself. I make it a game, because that becomes more fun. Challenge yourself to eat like 20 or 30 different colors and different vegetables, and we can, believe it or not, they're enough in our grocery stores that we can come up with different things, slightly different things, to make it more interesting. Even different types of leafy greens can make it interesting. So those are just some guidances that I build upon.
I love that. And spices count in that number.
Spices count
right?
in
so
that
that's
number.
Easy
exactly.
then,
the colors,
right? Because then we're just adding spices to a dish. We get 10 right there.
You exactly. In one dish is certainly, some of the Indian dishes you can get one.
Oh,
you can get your 10 right in one dish.
You got the whole week in one dish. I love that. Okay, here I love blueberries and berries. I put this in my smoothie every day.
Yeah.
And that has been my go-to. How powerful are blueberries for your cognitive health?
So blueberries are super powerful, and some of the work that I reviewed on trauma actually showed that blueberries were very powerful even there. And I think that not only just adding in some blueberries into your smoothie or adding it into your day are hugely important. I like people to almost rethink things like sweets and dessert, to think, how about delicious blueberries? Like a little cup of those, or quarter cup, to feel better, to munch on when you have that craving for chocolate or an ice cream or something like that. So they have, they're rich in anthocyanins, which give them that beautiful color. They're actually rich in fiber. And along with eating that whole fruit, you're getting the minerals and the vitamins that your body needs, vitamin C. So one of my go-tos, one of my favorites, and something that I like people to think about berries as. The other good thing in mental health, Dr. G, with berries is that they're low on the glycemic index.
Yeah.
So someone's coming in and they are taking medication which has already caused that side effect of weight gain, suggesting that they eat healthy servings of berries during the week becomes something that they can do. And instead of, say, a more higher glycemic level fruit, not that it's bad, but for them, they just might need to start with berries and work from there.
You know, a little sweet treat that I do for myself. I'll put a little bowl of blueberries and I'll mix in some either almond butter,
Yes.
maybe some peanut butter.
Yeah.
I'll mix it up and it'll be like, it'll satisfy that craving
Yes.
that I'll have sometimes, you know? But I know that it's going to be healthy for me.
Yes.
So really, I mean, blueberries are, I think, my favorite food.
I'm so delighted to hear that nothing bad can be said about blueberries.
Yeah, right. I mean, come on, they're blueberries, right? So how about the mushrooms?
Yeah.
The functional mushrooms. Are you a fan of these lion's manes for our brain health?
They actually have some really good benefits, and I've written about this. So I think that if they appeal to you, if you know how to use them, they're in all sorts of different preparations now.
Yeah.
I think that they are great to include. I'm a food first person, so if people are taking mushrooms and dehydrating them and making them into a tea or something, or a version of coffee or whatever it may be, what I guide people on is if it comes from a whole food, watch for the added sugars or other ingredients. This is different from, say, something like orange juice, where my recommendation is eat the orange.
Right.
Because you get everything in there, including the fiber. But, the store-bought orange juice has sometimes 6 or 8 teaspoons of added sugar.
Yeah.
And the fiber removed. So it's not the best choice. But with a lot of the more functional foods and things like that have come out, they're actually good options for us to almost improve, our options for brain health and along with everything else. So.
Okay, here my partner probably wants me to ask you this question. I'm going to ask it for her. What about dark chocolate? She loves dark chocolate.
Yes.
She has dark chocolate seeking behavior.
I'm glad you asked. So here's the lowdown on dark chocolate. Some really good research looked at pure natural dark chocolate. So we're not talking the fancy candy bars with dark chocolate. We're talking just the pure natural. Great source of prebiotic fiber, was shown in a pretty large study to help mood and lift depression. It is rich in magnesium. Magnesium actually helps anxiety, so it's a food that brings you magnesium. And so, I say the darker the better because it's actually good for our brain health. The cacao flavonols are very powerful. And so, for me, the guidance is, the type of dark chocolate you're eating and having people go towards the chunks of dark chocolate. And recently, there was some concern about all chocolate and exposure to lead and cadmium. So part of it means looking at the most recent consumer reports on what's been tested most recently and which brands you're going to be safer with. So just something to, it's interesting that some reports have said, look, there's so little in it, you don't really need to worry. But here's the thing, I don't know how much, your partner eats versus how much I eat. So I can say, sure, have a little bit, but a little bit for her, maybe a couple of bars, versus a square of chocolate, right? So it's different.
I can attest a little bit is almost half the bar. I said, where's this? I thought we just bought some chocolate. Where'd it go? And 2 days later.
It's gone.
But I love that you brought up the consumer reports, right? The concern for heavy metals, something like lead, it can affect our brain health.
It can affect our brain health.
Long term.
Yeah.
Okay, so, there's a lot of people who are feeling those symptoms of depression.
Yeah.
Diagnosed depressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we mentioned the power of how medication can save lives. When it comes to depression, and we look at neurotransmitters, is it all neurotransmitters? Is it other factors? Where are we looking at? Where's the paradigm at in your field when it comes to how we look at depression in medicine?
It's interesting because we've kind of based the treatment of depression on selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors like Prozac, Zoloft, Paxil, Celexa, all of these. Some recent and important research done in the UK during 2022 sort of upended the serotonin theory and sort of said, look, we don't think it's all about serotonin. And here's what I feel. I don't think it's one thing. I think that, why was I drawn to the power of nutrition? Not only because it was a gap in our education and something we were not using in patient care, but because it can have supportive additional benefits to how you're feeling. So I don't think it's just one thing. And I feel as though it's environment, it is genetics, it's, loneliness, isolation, all of these things play a factor. And so putting it together, yes, the serotonin has been a cornerstone as one of the neurotransmitters, as well as dopamine. All of these medications target different ones. But when you think about it through the gut-brain ecosystem, serotonin is important, as is dopamine. And you can actually, eat in a way that helps your gut health and therefore helps your brain health. So I wouldn't shy away from that, but I want people to understand it's not just one thing. And the more we know, the more we can try. But where food is powerful, it's that tool in your toolkit because it's the power at the end of your fork. And you can make the choice towards eating that healthier food on more days than not. No one's perfect. I talk about consistency being key, but none of us is perfect. So 80% of the time, do your best. And 20% of the time, life happens, I will say to parents that I work with, you might go to take your children to a birthday party and someone offers you a cupcake. That might happen in your life. It's okay, but that shouldn't be your everyday staple or your everyday diet. So depression is complicated. And I think finding a solution that fits what that person needs is very key. Psychotherapy, hugely important. I was in the UK for a keynote, being a keynote speaker last year, and I met a fascinating woman who's actually shared her story publicly. And she had been on multiple psychiatric medications. She shared how, her teenage daughters were taking care of her because she really wasn't able to get out of bed most days. And she went to a GP appointment and she saw a pamphlet on art therapy. And she thought, what the heck, let me try this. And she went. And over time, it completely transformed her life. And she speaks about this and has written about it. And I think that it just speaks to the power of how something can change a person's medical condition, psychiatric condition, by, over time, she was able to lower, with her, the help of her doctors, lower the medications, and really assume, when I say normal, a life that wasn't dependent on medications.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very powerful when we think about other ways to heal. Serotonin and depression is one of the
It's just one
ways.
of the pieces.
One of the pieces of
Not
this puzzle.
the piece that we thought.
Yeah.
And I love the part about art therapy. And for me, coming from my world, the way that I see that is self-expression is so important when it comes to mental health.
Huge.
And being in line with your soul's gifts, right? Man, when we were kids, we were drawing pictures. I was performing, I was doing all the dances and all the acting and everything. And, some people were doing fashion, but like dressing up.
Yeah.
But we lost that as we got older to conform to this norm that says you have to be this to be an adult.
Right.
But what a gift that if you can do art once a week, right? And imagine how that changes your mental health, because finally you're doing something that is in line with your authentic expression. Yeah. So it makes sense why even depression can get better. Start lowering the doses of the medication. Yeah. I really love that. Now, the standard American diet is unfortunately the standard.
Yes.
What is the number one food that you know is a forest fire in our body's ecosystem? The one that you say, hey, if there's any food you need to get off of in the standard American diet, man, you got to get off this one.
I don't think you're going to be surprised by this, but I think people don't realize that, we're always talking about sugar. And there's natural sugars in our diet. So those delicious berries, they have natural sugar. But the problem is people don't realize that it affects our brain. It actually affects our neurons. And so our diet the standard American diet is infused with sugar. It's in things that you wouldn't even realize. Fast food French fries have sugar in them. And the way that they are made, they have, believe it or not that much potato in them because they're so engineered, is the word I'm looking for. So they figured out a way to make them hyper palatable. And one of the ways you don't taste the sugar was adding a subtle amount of sugar. Now, think about how, if you've ever been to a drive-through in a fast food place, you upsize your French fries. And then you get the bigger size, you think, well, I won't eat all of it. Then you eat the whole thing.
Yeah.
Then you're like, well, it comes with this really large soda. Why didn't I get it? And the soda is laden with sugar.
It's
At
true.
the end of the meal, you're hungry because you actually want you want more of something.
Yeah.
I hate to say it because people just I don't demonize sugar. What I'm trying to say to people is it's not good for your brain. So if it's one thing that you can do differently or think about differently, it's when you're shopping, learn to read food labels. 4 grams of sugar is 1 teaspoon, and it confuses people because our recipes in the United States are standardized to pounds and ounces. So if you cook or bake, you look at a food label and you don't know what grams are, right? So if you convert that and you look at even something like a yogurt, if you eat yogurt and you think, well, blueberries are delicious, it can have a half a cup can have of store-bought yogurt can have 8 teaspoons of sugar. So it's a way to just rethink our own environment and make better choices. And that's what I'm asking people to just rethink what you're doing, see where the added sugars are. Fermented foods are great, but if you're getting a kombucha that's made in the store and being sold, it could have a ton of added sugar to offset that kind of sour taste, which makes it fermented.
Yeah, I know.
So it's all these little things.
It's so important.
Yeah.
It's so important because we can't, unfortunately, visualize, when we're talking about ounces and grams.
Yeah.
But then when we can visualize teaspoons and tablespoons, we go,
Right.
wait a minute, that's a lot of white sugar in here.
Would I be adding in 4, 8, 12
That's a
teaspoons of
lot.
sugar into like a little
In a
cup
small
of-
little cup, right?
In a small little cup.
Yeah,
right.
and then we're like, yeah, yogurt is so good for you, but it's so sweet.
It's so sweet.
It's
right.
so sweet,
And,
and then-
and you can still have, in fact, there are several manufacturers now that are much more savvy about the sugar. And you can try those, or you can get just the plain. And one of my favorite is cinnamon to sweeten. Cinnamon is a great sweetener, and it taps into the antioxidant part about spices. Cinnamon actually helps kind of stabilize your blood sugar a little bit. And throw in those delicious blueberries. And you've got something that is, some people even put in like a nut butter, to the yogurt, and makes it almost a whole flavor for themselves.
That sounds like a Dr.G mix right there. Yogurt, nut butter, blueberries,
there
and
you
some
go.
cinnamon. Oh my God, there's your dessert right there.
Yeah, you don't
and it's
need much
healthy,
more than that.
antioxidant rich, feeding our brain, feeding our gut. This is everything. It's so easy too.
It is easy, and what I find, I do this a lot when I travel because these are things that are easy to get if you're in a hotel or you stop at a supermarket, and I find them satiating. Because when I have a little bit of yogurt, whether it's dairy, sometimes I have a coconut yogurt, I find it satiating. I'm actually pleasantly full after that, and I've enjoyed it. And it's not the same when I eat a less healthy breakfast on the go, and I just really have started to pay attention to that.
Have you done any research or seen the effect of our pesticides affecting our gut, our pesticides affecting our brain health? What we talk about so much about food, does it matter, conventional versus organic?
It does, and herein as well, there's a balance. I feel like it's hard to get away from the pesticides that have been used because they're all over. The best we can do is think about buying cleaner products, whether it's a household product or, what you drink your water out of, what utensil or container or a refillable bottle you use. The issue with food is that I see it in a continuum. If someone is eating a standard American diet and eating at a fast food place all the time, I want to move them towards whole foods. So if those whole foods are getting vegetables which are not organic, but that's what they have within reach and is affordable, I'd rather they be eating that than French fries with the added sugar every single day. So that's one part of the puzzle. But another part of it is that the environmental working group gives you a list of the dirty dozen or the clean 15. It's a guidance, and if you can look at the ones that are organic and stay with that list, that's one guidance you have. And the ones you don't have to spend the extra money on. Ultimately, there may still be pesticides in much of what we're eating. So I think cleaning up our act overall is what will help. I would be lying if I said everything that we eat that is organic doesn't have pesticides because it's in our environment. And you probably will detect a certain amount. But if you can eat organic and you can find those non-GMO products and stuff like that, those are usually going to be better for your brain. But again, if you're subsisting on chicken nuggets and French fries,
Right.
then I'd rather you get any vegetable or any whole food or piece of meat or whatever you eat, seafood. That's an actual food, that.
Yeah, we think about how, again, like you just mentioned some foods like standard American diet, like these chicken nuggets that we're eating. It's these folks when they just make a change in a week. This is like a new light at the end of the tunnel. Like, oh my God, I've never felt like this. And the human body adjusts so fast to what it's given. So their new normal is just feeling crappy.
Right.
So I love that it's so, like you said, at the end of the fork, it's so accessible.
It's accessible. And we can make the choice.
Yeah.
We can make the decision. So it's sort of, do you take the right turn to the fast food place, and will you feel differently if you don't eat that food every day, or do you take a left and just get actual food, real food?
You mentioned some of the questions you ask your clients or your patients, and hydration was one of them. And I heard that one. I'm not skipping over it. It stayed with me. How are we more dehydrated than we think? And what role does dehydration play just in our overall mental health? Will it help mental health?
It really does. And that's why I have it as one of the steps I walk people through, because I think that if you're consuming 6 to 8 or more glasses of water in a day, and you don't have any medical condition, that would cause dehydration, you should be, be adequately hydrated. But the problem is that, dehydration can precipitate panic and anxiety. People don't realize it. Another thing is that dehydration has been associated with depression. So always just worth keeping yourself hydrated. And then the other thing is that in the brain, the signal for hunger and hydration or thirst are very similar. They actually overlap. So I always say to people, if you have, if you're heading towards that vending machine or that piece of chocolate that's a candy bar, have a glass of water. Just drink a glass of water, because sometimes that craving or that hunger will just subside because you were actually thirsty and your body didn't realize it. So dehydration and all of that, it's just a very interesting subject and really interacts with mental health that people don't realize.
So easy, right?
It's so easy.
You just grab a cup of water, see if you're really hungry,
right,
or your signals are getting crossed up.
That's right. And you may actually feel fine until dinner or whenever it is.
And the last part that you mentioned that stayed with me is nature, forest bathing.
Yeah.
First of all, people might not know what forest bathing is. What is it? And in your research, what is the power of nature and our mental health?
So, the Japanese term is Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing. And it's really spending time in nature, not necessarily being one with nature, but allowing yourself that time, that space, that energy to be in nature and allow the healing powers of the fresh air, the beautiful plants, the leaves, the forest, the trees, all to be around you. And it was found to be very powerful, not only to be healing, but to be calming to people. Now, I recently made a transition, and I'm part-time in a big city. I don't necessarily have nature right on my doorstep every day, so I've got to adapt that in my head to find mindful times that I can walk in the park and find my version of that. But then when I'm further away and I can engage in more natural habitats and spend time in nature that way, I do. It's not only healing, it kind of resets your mind. It allows you to have your mind wander. With our days being as crammed as they are, I often hear from people that working virtually, they've lost the boundary of healthy, like end of the day work, and they're still checking email at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
So just that walk, just that time outdoors, and if you are near, real nature and all of that, enjoy it. Spend that time outdoors. It's hugely beneficial to resetting, allowing for mind wandering, just being, just having that calm sense of a sense of calm kind of permeate your being. And it can be very, almost even meditative,
I
take
love
a
that.
walk. So,
And I notice the days that I'm in nature, I sleep better.
yes.
I just
People
sleep
say
better.
that all the time.
The days that I'm moving in nature, I sleep better. It's and I see it on my Aura ring, It
Right.
just show me exactly.
Just sleeping better.
Hey, we covered a lot. We covered hydration, food, spices, depression, how it looks, the picture of it, cell phones, nature, everything else in between. I love that this was so comprehensive but easy. And I see that that's what you do with your work. You make it accessible and easy, right? And we don't have to spend $1 million on this new recipe
Right.
or this new detox box or something, right?
Right.
Mental health box. It's right there. We go to the supermarket and we just get our hands on it.
Well, thank you for saying that, Dr. G, because, the purpose of bringing my book forward, called This Is Your Brain on Food, and I look at the different mental health conditions. Number one, you don't have to have a diagnosis. You may just be struggling during this time. Just your mood is not returned, your energy, or you're feeling really anxious and worried. You don't actually have to have the textbook definition of a diagnosis. You may actually still be able to feel better because of how you eat. And I felt that the message needed to be simpler than more complicated, because people hear complicated protocols all the time.
Yeah.
And it's really going back to these basics that we often overlook or we think are related to weight or something else in our lives, but they actually relate to our mental health too. It's, mental health is not above the neck. It's part of the rest of us. So including this and all of these ideas in a real holistic way becomes important.
It's holistic. And so all the viewers and listeners, listen, I don't care if you feel 1,000,000%, you got to get this book, because it's going to give us the blueprint of everything and more, much more than we talked about on the show, about the foods we need to be eating, the practices, all in a holistic sense. Because you said it's not just the head up, it's the full body for our mental health. I remember the commercials in the 80s, this is your brain on drugs with the egg on the thing. This is your brain on food, and it's gonna be glowing and it's gonna be radiating, and that's the top thing that we need to be doing. Hey, look, I love your work. I love that we got to get you in person over here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Maybe
Thank
next
you,
time
Dr.
we get you for another unicorn segment next
We
year
will,
for maybe
definitely,
part 2. I would love that.
Definitely, I'd love that.
Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you, Dr. G. It's really lovely to meet you.